I'd like to share with you guys a quote that I think really summarizes this video very well. History does not repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And we will find it the case in Honkai Star Rail's shifting meta too, as we will dive deeper in each of them. Now, why is this important? Whenever we are making pooling decisions for certain characters, for certain like styles, we do not have unlimited resources to pool every single thing. So it's very important to know in advance, especially if I can help you predict half a year, 7 months, 10 months, whatever not, in advance, we can actually make a very, very good informed decision over a long period of time. It's not something that I'm asking you to pull next patch, this patch or something like that. It's over the course of a long time, and this information is going to help us out as well. So first things first, follow up, break, debuff. These are kind of like the big three right now in the game. A lot of people joke and say like Fei Xiao, Firefly, Akirion, these are like the big 3 DPS in the game. You have 1 or 2 or out of 3 of them, you're pretty much set. Those of you who have all 3 are super lucky as well. But this wasn't always the case. This wasn't always the meta in the very start of Honkai Star Rail. Those people who started in day 1, follow up, break, debuff were hardly heard of way back then. And let's dive a little bit in the history side of things as we try to gain an insight to how they might rhyme for the future. Early innings. Let's start off with the follow-up attacking section first, because this is probably like the easiest one to understand, to get into a feel. A lot of players play it because we all have free characters in this category. So we had in the early days, like super early on in like 1.0 patch, we had Jingyuan, Herta, as well as Himiko. These 3 characters weren't that great back then. Follow-up attacking was like Jingyuan mains played it, Herta, Himiko were like barely even existent because Pure Fiction didn't exist then. So this style, super unpopular. It wasn't even like a major thing. People just knew that they exist. And then slowly across a long period of time, we started to have early introductions, hints that more things might happen with as early as a Topaz and Nabi patch. Back then, she was dropped together with Jingliu, and people were like, lol, Topaz and Nabi, this character is obviously going to pale in comparison with a character like Jingliu. Yeah, she might have some sort of follow-up buffing, but who is she going to buff? Jingyuan and stuff like that. So everyone was like pulling Jingliu and stuff, and Topaz and Nabi was super neglected back then in the old game state. Then next up, we of course started to get the major huge change, right? Everyone got a free doctor ratio. Those that joined within a certain time limit, everyone was super happy. People were starting to play him with Topaz and Nambi, because for those of you who don't know, back then we did a video, Topaz and Nambi and doctor ratio, the combination of imaginary and fire actually tackled every single boss weakness, elite and major bosses in the game back then when they were both released at around that point of time, making these two an unstoppable combination, and it started to form the core of what follow-up teams will become in a little bit. So then, of course, we got the introduction of Robin, who's solidifying the position. Now she's on banner as well. We had Aventrine, which pretty much sums up the premium team that you see here out of this 4, and that kind of made follow-up attacking the mainstay, and a lot of people started to gain more attraction into this space as well. And of course, now we have like a spanking new DPS, Fei Xiao, who really solidifies follow attacking as rivaling a lot of the other styles in terms of competitiveness too. So, but this thing didn't happen overnight. It wasn't something like I snapped my fingers today, tomorrow, the patch entire meta changes. If you look at the duration, Topaz and Nabi was released in 1.4 second half, and the last crux of the puzzle, piece of the puzzle in this case, let's just say that Robin was the last one, right? Not Aventrine. So Robin was around 2.2. This duration was about 10 weeks or thereabouts, like 10 patches rather, so 30 weeks, which is about 7 months. So this is a really long time to see the first innings of a follow-up attack change all the way into a very deep follow-up maturity state, which is a 7-month duration. So we can actually plan in advance, and this is just one example. Let's go on to the next one, which is Break. A little bit of rewind and Break. Back then, in the very early days of very early Honkai Star Rail, Break wasn't even super popular. The only people playing like Break Effect maybe were like Bruiser, Fire MC, Break, Himiko, to some extent like Luca, Break, but it was not very like meta. No one was talking about it. It's more like a gimmick and like trying to try a new style out rather than it being solidified as like one of the best ways to play the game. And of course, then we started to get Ranmei as well as Shui both in the same patch. A first time a character actually scaled with Break Effect, and a character that buffed a lot of like weakness breaking and stuff. So this was the early innings, but even with these two characters, like Break, Super Break and all that weren't really a meta. They were just like great characters overall, but it didn't form the basis of a new meta yet. And then we started to have a new one, we started to have supports that scale off with break. Like Gallagher, we have characters that literally create a new aspect. Harmony MC here, which introduced super break, and that is when a lot of us started to realize, hey, actually it might be quite useful. Not only because it's easy to access a character like Harmony MC, a lot of us have them for free, but at the same time, once Firefly and Boot Hill came out with a very solid 5-star DPS, that's when we actually realized break is a very, very strong composition, and it started to act as the mainstay as well. And of course, how long did this take? From the early introduction of Ranmei and Xue in 1.6 first half, it actually took a whopping 9 patches before Firefly, Boot Hill, 8 and 9 patches respectively, were finally introduced to solidify what is now the break meta that we have. A whopping 7 months from when it was like almost nothing to when it was suddenly the meta that changes. So this is a reassuring thing that meta changes can take a longer period of time, and you want to like FOMO and like get hooked in. This video wants to educate us for the long run. Those of us who are playing the game for a long run, that's what this channel aims to do, to help us out plan for the future as well as changing like our mindset, thinking about things. The last one here is a bit unique to the other two, the debuff category, and here's why. In the early days, debuff has always been used as a support for a hyper carry. We saw that in the very early days, like with Pella in 1.0, helping you buff like your DPSs that are doing tons of damage. Back then, she wasn't as popular as a character like Harmony characters until Jingliu came about. Pella started to rise a bit more to fame, but then debuff was never a huge style. Until we started to get Doctor Ratio and people cared more about the debuff orientedness. And of course, at the same time of all these new character releases, it's just easier account characters. There were a lot of other sets I released for follow-up attack, break, debuff. All of these are all like factors that are important, but characters are of course easier to like illustrate, easier to like measure on a timeline kind of thing. So Doctor Ratio was one of them that started to increase the visibility of like debuff oriented teams as well as Pioneer Divers of Deadwater set. Then of course we had Akirion, who really solidified the debuff meta and nihility meta of course, and the restriction that she brings. We had Aventurine and Xiaotu, which are icings on the cake. But I would say for Akirion's case in this category, she pretty much was a very, very quick introduction, and straight away she became meta. So this is one of the unique aspects of Akirion. She didn't take like 7 months for the meta to generally change over time. It just snapped. Akirion came in, she was so strong, she changed the meta, she changed the requirements, and then thereafter they built other characters to sell you and reinforce this meta. But Akirion meta was one of the unique ones. It's quick to come and is very, very pressurizing, which we'll analyze in a bit. But all of this, we already shared with you in a similar video, like this one over here when we are planning for the future. I actually talked about this video 5 months ago, before the metas were even solidified. I actually talked about it. If you guys watch this and help me like it, comment, and subscribe it also, thank you guys so much as well. I just want to know that, I want you guys to know that I'm here for the long run. I want to help your accounts be better over time as well, and not be like FOMO and rushing into every single thing without a proper plan. So what's taken away from the history that we see, this very brief history lesson? Of course, if we go back even further, there are much more lessons, as we talked about in like the previous video when we noticed meta shifts, but I wanted to give you a more recent example since it's more fresh in the mind. There are two styles generally in terms of meta shifting, changing and shifts. One is a gradual introductory shift, where we saw, for example, like break, follow-up. It took a longer time to come in because then more introductory needs to be done. Follow-up, attacking, break. This needed a long period of time. Many different characters to be introduced. Many of them are free as well. Follow-up attacking, you had Doctor Ratio was free. Follow-up break, you had Harmony MC was free. So accessibility is very, very useful too. So free characters generally are signals where the meta might go. The next thing, of course, is the second one, which is Nihility, Harmony, and Akirion, which was a very quick game changer. This was a snap finger, immediately meta change when she arrived because she's just so good, and this is actually quite dangerous. So the negative of the quick game changers, in my opinion, is that it accelerates power creep very quickly. Imagine if every single character was a quick game changer. This patch come in, snap finger, immediately the game changes, power creep happens. This is actually quite bad because you will be kind of like, every single patch something new, your old DPS could totally becomes irrelevant. So this is a huge negative if you keep doing it. So unlikely this will happen often, but we want to prepare for quick game changes, which I will mention to you what am I looking out for as well. Next up, of course, is it forces players to pull. I put this as a minus or plus, depending whether you're on Hoyoverse marketing team or whether you are a consumer. By forcing players to pull, you empty their wallets because everyone is pulling. So generally, people were whacked on Akirion and a little bit less thereafter. So this is one of the significant ones. Whereas gradual introductory shifts is actually much better for the player base over a long period of time. It allows time to transition. A lot of us had 7 months to save, to plan, to decide whether we even like the style. But the downside for that long 7 months, it of course gives you a lack of visibility. We don't really know like clarity. Is it going to come? Is follow-up meta? Is break meta? Is DOT meta? What are all the things that might be meta? So there's a lot of question marks as we go along. By the time that we have certainty, you are probably a little bit late and you have to like double a pull, a double rerun when you want to actually get into that game state. So that is the downside. So more time, yes, but you have a lot of lack of visibility. And my job here is to increase the level of visibility of this video, as well as to help you detect when you actually need to counter these quick game changes, which I'll talk about right now. So then the question is, where to next? Like once we know all this, where is it next? So in 7 months' time, we will definitely be in the next new planet, 3.x, which is the whatever that may be. And there are 2 things that I want us to take away, and my job of this video that I hope to give to the community as well, is 1, encourage saving. By encouraging saving, as we talked about on the channel, my PSA video that I recently just put out, I mentioned that 3.x is coming, save as much as you can, but this video really goes into depth of why I actually made that PSA out earlier. And I don't want us to have a situation where a game-changing character suddenly comes, changes the meta, and we don't have enough resources. And we know that usually they will have to do something every time a planet changes because they are trying to bring it up, marketing hype and stuff. So by encouraging you guys to save, to don't pull for every Eidolon there is, that's why we put out all the Eidolon videos to help you analyze, right? What is the good decision? What is maybe a better to wait off and don't FOMO and pull everything and like spend all your resources. That's one huge factor. So saving, super good. And next up, of course, is to identify what are the early innings, at the 0 mark, before the 7 months takes place, what are the signs of things going to go so that we have even more visibility to make a better decision. And trust me, a new planet beckons change, and we have seen that in the past, but I'll mention that a bit. So what are the 3 early signs that I'm seeing right now in the game state? And of course, these are very visibility is very low here, right? Because we are super early on, so everything is a question mark, and I haven't seen a key deciding factor. I'll let you know, of course, when I have a key deciding factor, but right now, this is what I am thinking of in the early signs. 1, position meta could be a thing. Lusaka is an interesting one because they didn't introduce any position-based play. But what is position-based play? Lusaka, Sankasis, for those of you who don't know, those characters in the first slot will get an attack buff. Second, third, fourth slot can use this gear, and then they will all buff like the first slot person. So it's very unique because nothing else has such position-based gaming, which means characters that want to be in slot 2, slot 3, slot 4 might have different buffs in future, or characters that buff based on their positioning. I think it could be very interesting. Currently, every character in the game doesn't really care too much about where they are in the position, with the exception of maybe squishier characters want to be on the side so they don't get splashed too much, and your tanks that shield generally in the center so that they can draw aggro. So when it splashes, you get some energy for the rest of the team as well. And your aggro drawers, for example, like Yunli, for example, like Clara, they generally want to be at the corner so that they can draw the aggro, hit them, and then at most only splashes to one character beside them. So other than these like minor nitty-gritties of position, we don't actually have too much of a position meta. So they might want to go into this aspect over a long period of time. We are seeing it with Lusaka, Sunken Seas as the first innings. The next one is a DOT rotation. Instead of just playing in the current meta, they could go into underdeveloped meta currently in the game, the other teams of Honkai Star Rail that they want to go into. And stuff like that we see is a recent release of 2 DOT characters, Jiao Qiu as a DOT character. And if we have upcoming characters, for example, we are going to have a new MC next in the new 3.x. And one of the things that haven't been released yet is a Nihility MC. If you're of the view that maybe a Nihility MC might come about, and if that Nihility MC offers you something different, for example, who knows, healing as a DOT, or something like that, we could actually see a huge meta shift into a DOT rotation in 3.x. So I think that the MC for the next cycle is going to dictate where the meta is going to go. That's a key sign that I'm watching out for. I'll let you guys know, update you guys as I get more of the information, when we get more information as well officially. But not to worry guys, I'm here for you guys. I won't leave you guys to decide without additional visibility. And last but not least, of course, that I want to talk about in this early signs that I'm seeing is summon meta. So summon meta is characters that can summon units. For example, you have a new character here that was just recently introduced, Lingsha. Other than that, you have Topaz and Nabi, you have Jingyuan and whatnot. Future characters may come where they can summon characters, maybe they can even one day summon controllable units as well. But we also see the new set, the Banan Amusement Park, where they actually introduce buffs to summon type characters. There are only 3 characters in the game, so it can't be that they are so restrictive to only release a new entire domain to farm just for 3 units in the game. This tool definitely signals early innings for me of something that is going to come, and if we see more and more future units having some sort of summon-based mechanic, we are sure that the meta might rotate into something else, and it's very early innings in the early days of slowly transiting. And of course, one more thing that I want to talk about here is final patch wolves. History does not often repeat itself, but it often rhymes. What we saw in Genshin Impact when Inazuma was about to come out, this was way back in Genshin Impact, like 1.x, right? Very in the early days. Kazuha was released just before a new planet. This is the final patch of the 1.x, and it's similarly, Ranmei came about in the last patch of 1.x before we headed into Panicany. This character, Kazuha, has been meta for a super long time. Genshin Impact has been out for like 4 years plus. I think he's one of the best characters in the game for 4 years plus. Super strong. At the same time, Ranmei is also really strong as well. And both of them have came out in the final patch. As we are approaching 3.x, we will have another probably character that they aim to sell. Why does it work final patch? Is because the hype for a 3.x is the highest, and you want to empty your existing player base wallet as much as you can, so they will sell you a very strong character as we enter the new world before like novelty and hype starts to kick in. What is the rhyming? I'll just like to leave you with another quote, and you will probably know it, is, have you actually heard the story of the Charmony Dove? And if you appreciate such content, do like and subscribe for more of such future videos. Check out these 2 other videos that I think will be very interesting right now. And yeah, thank you guys so much for your attention, watching. Share with any of your friends who are planning for the future. You want them to know you found this useful. And thank you guys again so much for your attention. See you next video.